Journalist Peter Taylor asks what role the internet has had in the formation of Generation Jihad.
Go to any youth on the street and say, do you believe in jihad? They say, yeah. Do you believe that Al-Qaeda are a terrorist movement? They say, no.
We're living at a time of war because the Western world's not letting anyone live in peace.
And on Christmas Day, one young extremist tried to turn his radical anger into terrifying violence. Umar Abdul Muttalib from Nigeria boarded a plane to Detroit with high explosives concealed in his underwear. Just 23 years old, Abdul Muttalib is the latest young Muslim to have attempted mass murder. He spent 3 years at London University. For this series, I've worked for a year investigating who these young people are and how they come to be radicalized.
Generation Jihad is smart, well-educated, living in places like Bradford, West Yorkshire, Glasgow.
I've tracked their networks around the world. It's a world where teenagers are being recruited via the internet and groomed for violent jihad. In Britain, the government has developed a controversial multi-million-pound strategy to prevent the spread of violent Islamist extremism. That's because, although they're a tiny minority, a small group of radicalized young men now constitute the single biggest threat to our national security. My journey began in West Yorkshire, home to 2 million people, also home to 3 of the 7/7 bombers who attacked London in July 2005. I wanted to find out why some of Britain's young extremists are prepared to support violence against their fellow citizens. But recently, this area has come under intense scrutiny from police forces and intelligence services, not just from the UK, but from around the world. That's because West Yorkshire has become home to a generation of young jihadis and to Britain's youngest convicted terrorist. Hamad Munshi went to Westborough High School, the local comprehensive. His classmates and family in Savilletown thought they knew Hamad well. But from the age of 15, Hamad had been living a secret life. While his parents thought he was studying in his bedroom, he was logging on to extremist websites and chat rooms. He soon became radicalized and vulnerable to grooming by hardened jihadis. His private writings show how far he had gone.
The reason I have gone so early into this house of war is because of the beautiful act of fighting in putting Allah's word high above all. I do not want to stay in this country.
Within months, he was wired into a serious jihadi cell. Without his parents knowing, he met a Bradford man who was one of the key figures in the network that was planning terrorist attacks in Europe and North America. But police had some of the group under surveillance. In his rucksack, the schoolboy was carrying 2 bags of ball bearings, similar to those used in suicide bombs. Police then searched his room. What was the evidence against Hamad Munshi? What did you find?
We found obviously the document on how to make napalm, which he'd created and shared. There was a number of pieces of information. One of them was how to make your own firearm.
Did Hamad Munshi's family have any idea what he was doing on the internet?
From what was spoken to them, no, they had no idea at all. Again, it's that warning, isn't it, about the internet and parents.
Teenagers isolate themselves, they go lock themselves in their rooms and they're on their little phone gadgets or they're on their internet, they're doing their own thing. And whilst mummy downstairs has got the big Indian channel on with watching her favourite Bollywood dances, oblivious to what her children are actually getting up to. And I think that we need to that is a real issue in the Pakistani home.
Hamad Munshi was found guilty of possessing information likely to be useful to terrorists. He was sentenced to 2 years, making him at 18 Britain's youngest convicted terrorist. And Munshi wasn't the only young jihadi who was stopped before an attack. MI5 reckons there are around 2,000 extremists in the UK who pose a potential threat, plus an unknown number of sympathisers. One of those sympathisers was Umar Abdul Muttalib, who tried to blow up a plane over Detroit. As a schoolboy in Nigeria, he had, just like Ahmad Munshi, discovered extreme Islam and posted his jihadi fantasies on the internet. His radicalisation grew during his 3 years at University College London.
There seems to be a very small number of people that are brought into this bizarre cult that to be a Muslim you've got to follow the kind of societal, cultural protocols of 6th century Arabia.
But what attracted some of the younger generation to Islam was not the moderate faith of their parents, but an extreme brand whose roots lay in Arab countries far from Pakistan. For angry young Muslim boys, traditional imams at the local mosques could not compete with fanatical voices calling for holy war against the infidels.
They should be aware what it means to be Muslim in this godforsaken country. We have been born.
These political groups talked of building an Islamic state or caliphate, uniting the entire Muslim world under medieval Sharia law. But what the Islamist extremist wanted was a worldwide Islamic state. This is the concept of Ummah, the global community in which all Muslims are brothers and sisters. For jihadi sympathisers, it's used to justify almost any kind of violence in retaliation for the suffering of fellow Muslims. Relying on the literal word of the Quran is the trademark of radical Muslim groups like Al-Muhajirun. It was banned in 2006. Some of the extremist preachers associated with it were thrown out of Britain. It then changed its name to Islam for UK. That too has recently been banned. It caused outrage by staging stunts involving British soldiers returning from Afghanistan.
The British people, they are solely responsible for the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are responsible for 7/7 and they are responsible indirectly for 9/11.
Taking the piss out of our country. Calm down, calm down. I'm asking you, right? You just start swearing. Calm down. Go back to Islam, right? Preach your Allah. Yeah, well, go back over there, preach your own stuff over there. Not in this country.
But the uncomfortable truth is that almost every British Muslim convicted of terrorism offences has at one time been influenced by groups like this. Radicalism, however offensive, isn't the same as terrorism. So what turns an angry young man into a potential murderer?